In the city of Jerusalem, during the feast of Passover, Yahusha is brought before the high priest Caiaphas. The Sanhedrin, a council of Hellenized priests and elders claiming authority over Judah, Levi, and Benjamin, were supposed to enforce Yahuah's Torah and guide the people. Instead, they had become intermediaries of salvation for profit, using religion as a tool for control and wealth. Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, represented the occupying political power. He had the authority to maintain order, enforce laws, and sentence individuals to death. Together, the Sanhedrin and Pontius Pilate combined religious authority and political power, creating a system that manipulates the people, silences truth, and protects corruption. They accused Yahusha of blasphemy and of claiming to be king, intending to provoke fear in Rome and preserve their own positions. In Matthew 26, verse 57 to 68, it says, "Those who had seized Yahusha led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of the law and the elders had assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire." The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Yahusha so that they could put him to death, but they found none. Though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, two came forward and declared, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of Yahuah and rebuild it in 3 days." That verse ends. The Sanhedrin twisted Yahusha's words. He had been speaking of his own body as the true temple, which would rise after 3 days. Yet they deliberately misrepresented him, accusing him of threatening the temple of Yahuah itself. This distortion highlights their corruption and their inability to discern truth. The Sanhedrin were also acting as mediators of salvation for profit, presenting themselves as the gatekeepers of truth while exploiting the people. Religion became a tool for money and control rather than obedience to Yahuah. Pontius Pilate interrogates Yahusha and finds no fault. In John 18, verse 38, it says, Pontius Pilate said to him, "Do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you know I have authority to release you or to crucify you?" Yahusha answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin." That verse ends. Yet Pontius Pilate faces pressure. The Sanhedrin stirs the people, calling for Barabbas instead of Yahusha. In Matthew 27, verse 20, it says, "But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and to have Yahusha executed." That verse ends. The crowd, influenced by the authorities, cries out for Barabbas. In Matthew 27, verse 22 to 23, it says, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barabbas or Yahusha, who is called the Messiah?" "Barabbas," they answered. "What shall I do then with Yahusha, who is called the Messiah?" They all answered, "Crucify him." "Why?" Pilate asked. "What crime has he committed?" But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him." That verse ends. What appears as opposition, authorities versus the people, is actually a unity of corruption. Both the Sanhedrin and Pontius Pilate protect power, suppress truth, and manipulate public perception. The apostles and true followers stand apart, witnessing the injustice. They represent obedience, discernment, and faithfulness amid deception. Yahusha is led to Golgotha, the place of a skull, and nailed to the stake. At the moment of his death, the veil of the temple is torn from top to bottom. In Matthew 27, verse 51, it says, "At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, the rocks split." That verse ends. The tearing of the temple veil reveals that the presence of Yahuah and his Torah truth is no longer confined to a building or controlled by corrupt authorities. The Hellenized Sanhedrin, who claim to enforce and teach the law, are exposed as imposters. Now, the way to Yahuah's truth is open to all who seek him sincerely, freely, without intermediaries. Yahusha resurrected, fulfilling what he spoke, that after 3 days, this temple, his body, would rise again. His resurrection proved that no earthly power, religious or political, could overcome Yahuah's truth or plan. The crucifixion exposes corruption, but the resurrection reveals victory, life over death, and truth over deception. Yahusha's Torah is love. Loving Yahuah with all your heart and loving your neighbor and the stranger as yourself. The apostles and righteous followers witnessed this shift and carried the message forward. Obedience, discernment, and faithfulness are the true means to connect with Yahuah. This deception isn't limited to history. Even today, false authority, manipulated religion, and the promise of salvation for profit continue to mislead many. The lesson is clear. Test authority with discernment, resist manipulation, and recognize that true religion serves justice, humility, and direct access to Yahuah, not power, profit, or pretense.